So the civil rights movement was about uplifting the black community in America and bringing about change for all kinds of oppressed communities. And the way that we talk about that is kind of downplayed in terms of exactly what went into it. So there was obviously great change that was brought about through the actions of all these different radicals and revolutionaries, but at the same time, the movement didn't really have an ending point. All the leaders in Black Power movement, in the Civil Rights movement, they died, they were murdered. So people look back at that time period and think, oh, some great things happened then, and everything's fixed now. But it didn't end because we reached the goal we were going to. It ended because everybody who was leading it died. So I think there's a lot that has to do with the racial climate where a lot that's very implicit that goes on. UT isn't as directly volatile as some other campuses where there's more clashes, direct clashes, but I feel like there's a lot of underlying resentment between different communities here in terms of how we engage with race. I think that racial justice, if it is considered a core value of UT, we need to be doing a better job at living up to that value. I think that while there is some sort of effort, there is genuinely a lack of understanding and an asynchronicity in how we approach all those different racial topics and events that come up throughout the year. During different student assemblies, there's not adequate black representation within those spaces. So what I think really needs to be done is there's genuinely looking for that understanding by talking directly to black students and seeing what they think and taking seriously what they think. So with UT specifically, it's such a closed campus, meaning that outsiders, people who don't attend here, have such a hard time accessing so many of the great facilities here. So like with the parking situation here, it's so hard for anyone from outside of the area to get into the community and utilize all these different great things that should be available to this larger area. And with Austin in itself, there's a palpable divide between what is considered Black Austin and the rest of Austin. Along the I-35 line, people are afraid to go over to that side of the aisle because of all the negative stereotypes they hold about Black America in general. And it's really interesting how a city that many people consider to be so progressive and liberal still has this very concrete literal border running through town, and there's so much needs to be done from a municipal level in terms of changing the way that they conduct and allocate resources that needs to be shifted over to helping uplift the black community as opposed to simply ignoring them and moving in more people. So with Black Lives Matter and all other movements that's popped up between 1968 to now, it is part of that continued legacy and narrative of advocating for black rights and human rights in general in the States. At the same time, due to the way that we teach about the civil rights movement, we are left unequipped and unprepared to understand the scale of the effort that was done by all of the people in the civil rights movement. People look back at Dr. King and they bastardize his beliefs in a way that makes him seem less of a radical than he actually was. So when we look at Black Lives Matter movement and some other things like that, we kind of undersell the scale of the effort that is required to organize to actually achieve palpable change. So there are so many different things with how we teach black history in America throughout public school and leading up to college that really sets people up to not understand the different dynamics of race. And that leads to all these different kinds of microaggressions not being able to see through another person's lenses because we just don't have the context for that because our education system has failed us in that way. So what is very important to do is take an honest, in-depth analysis of those kind of texts and also change the people who are looking at those texts and putting those into place so that we can really find a way to have just more productive conversations where people come to the table with a different set of base knowledge than we have right now.